It was loading.
Okay, there it is. Well, fuck your God damn it. This is the Odd Atheist Friends. This is Matthew, and over there in the biggest square fucking flyover state there is, fucking North Dakota, Eric. Hi, Eric.
Hey, do you know what's funny right now?
What's
North
that?
Carolina is getting fucking hammered with snow. Like my old where I was staying has like fucking 4 or 5 inches already, and it just keeps going.
So your hometown is going to be shut down for basically like a week, right?
My entire home state is shut down for like probably the next 2 weeks, and I'm over here in like nice and warm 20, 30 degrees North Dakota right now.
Well, we've actually got like a guest, and this person's like a smart person who like does like math and like people's financial responsibilities and stuff. Phil Ferguson of the Phil Ferguson Show. Phil, how the fuck are you? And how did you get roped into this? Do I have something on you or something? Is that why you're here?
I am doing freaking awesome, and fuck your God too.
Yes, yes.
And I'm trying to figure out what kind of bizarre world do we live in when someone can say it's nice and warm in the 20s here.
I moved to North Dakota and it has been very cold for the past month. Like it dropped down to like the negatives a lot. So now it's nice and warm in the 20s.
Yeah,
it's 23 here in Chicago.
Yes, I've done two things that have made winters much worse for me. I'm less fat and I'm older. And that's a bad combination for cold.
Yeah.
Have you gotten the arthritis yet?
No, not to my knowledge, but I was in a restaurant the other day and I was looking around and going, it's drafty in here.
Get a turtleneck sweater, Grandpa.
I just get a shawl.
Yeah, there you go. So, Phil, tell us about your show, what you got going on, and what's the haps, what's the new, what's the old, what's going on?
Let's see. The show is called The Phil Ferguson Show because I'm a fucking naming savant.
Love it.
As a matter of fact, I couldn't even come up with the name myself. A friend did, so I went with it. And when they suggested it, I was silent. And my friend said, "You don't like the name?" And I said, "Oh, I like it too much." That's always something I worry about when it seems too good to be true, or I like something too much. I kind of force myself to stop and pause and think about what I'm doing. Just like the people who should have done that when Bitcoin was $20,000 a coin.
Yeah. And you see these things. Like I had a guy friend me on Facebook the other day, and he seemed all nice, and then he's like, "Hey, do you know anything about cryptocurrencies?" I'm like, "Defriend, block."
Well, before I would get sucked into the world of cryptocurrency, my show does cover investments. I teach people how to money. So I've been a financial planner for about 23-ish years. And so the show, it's not a big tease like a lot of financial, and I have my radio air quotes up, financial shows where they say, well, we can teach you how to make money in the up market and how not to lose money in the down market. And it's just bullshit sales for annuities. I show after show after show tell people how to invest for free. And the shtick for me is I know that a very small percentage of the listeners will end up contacting me and hiring me. So I do make money, but the show is free. I talk about investments, but I also talk about atheism. I talk about politics. Me and most of my guests have a shared love of Trump. That's
hot.
But usually it's politics, religion, and investing or money. The three things you should never discuss with your family.
Absolutely. So your Thanksgiving dinners must be awesome, at least with your still Christian friends and family.
The lucky thing for me is over the last couple of decades, virtually everyone in family has converted from their religion. So,
wow,
I have a lot of responsibility for that. So I'm very excited. I somewhere lost track of how many people bullshit of religion, but it's nice. It's a very nice thing.
Wow, that's amazing. Eric and I are in a total opposite situation.
Yeah, it can be rough.
I left. Moved.
So did I.
Away. But
I joined the Navy.
So Phil, do you on your show, do you have like, I'm sorry, I've never listened because I didn't know who you were until Matthew said you were coming on the show. So that's super exciting.
Well, you're refreshing, if not saddening.
Oh, well, I'm definitely going to check it out because I am super interested in learning about financial stuff because one, I am responsible for teaching children, youths, how to handle their money coming out of homelessness. So a lot of them ask questions about stuff that I don't know anything about because I'm just trying to like learn a lot of stuff myself. So do you have like basic education type shows or
And
is it like really pointed?
it's a very difficult balance for me because from a personal perspective, if I talk to millionaires and the problems that they have, I'm more likely to get those people to continue to listen and to hire me. So I have this inherent problem that makes me more money. But I also talk about very, very basic and simple things from time to time because I see what I do as a public service. And
Hmm.
so someone that has $400 or $500. As an example, I did a long discussion on a phone app called Acorns, which is very big with the youth, where you can buy something for $5.20 and it rounds up to the next dollar and 80 cents goes into your investment account.
Hmm.
That I did a whole long show on that, and I won't bore you here. But the short of it is, do not fucking use Acorns. See, that was
Really?
oh yeah, it's horrible, absolutely horrible. And one of the
Wow.
most important horrible things is that the money is not held in your name. It's held,
It's held in theirs?
yeah. So if they go bankrupt, you could lose what
All your money.
your investment, and also the fees to get out. They very cleverly say things like it doesn't cost any money to do this, that, and the other, but there's other things that do cost money that you're probably, pardon me, going to have to do to get your money out.
Oh wow.
So in total, it's not a good thing, and it's one of those things where I have a common refrain with on my show is people are always asking me, how about this app, or how about this app, or how about this thing, or how about this thing? What's the best way to invest $100 or $200? The problem you're focusing on the wrong problem. The problem that you have is not how do I get the best investment for $200. The problem is that you have only $200 fucking dollars.
Hmm.
If you only have $200, you're never going to retire on that. It's just not how the world works. But if you have next to nothing, you can set up an account at Fidelity or at Vanguard. Vanguard needs $1,000 to buy some of their funds. Fidelity has brand new funds that are $0 entry. So if you have $200, go to Fidelity. It's going to be fine. And you get the total stock market index. You own a fraction of everything in the world or everything in the US. And you can link your bank just like Acorns does, just like Betterment and Mint and all these other apps. And you can control it yourself and send 5, 10, 20 bucks a month. And as you make more money, you can send more and more. And you don't need a fancy schmancy app, but the fancy schmancy app on your phone, it's cool, it's hip, it's groovy, right? It's the new thing. But are you investing to make money, or do you just to do something entertaining? So you got to keep your focus in line.
I heard about Robinhood. Have you heard anything about them?
Yeah, Robinhood is. I've been asked about that a lot, and I've looked into it very casually. And the problem is that one of these apps like Acorns, I probably spent 20 plus hours digging in all the disclosure documents and reading everything that I can find on their website to really understand deeply how it works. I have not done that with Robinhood. So it looks like at this point in time, it falls into the general category of if you want to do investing, go old school and go to Schwab or T. Rowe Price or some other platform that has been established and you know who they are, you know they're reliable. Why do something new and creative just because it's cool and you can look at your stocks on your phone? And in a way, Robinhood, even if it works exactly like they say that it does, and I'm not 100% sure of that yet, if you can look at your stocks on an ongoing basis continuously through the day, you're doing it wrong anyway. So even if it does exactly what it says and it's the best way to buy a handful of stocks, what in the fuck are you doing buying a handful of stocks? If you only have a few $1,000s, you should go again to Fidelity or Vanguard and get an index fund that owns everything. Your job is not pick and choose. Your job is to save some more freaking money. That's what you need to conquer, is spending less than you make or making more than you spend. One of those two has to be there. And you just slam the money in. And I tell people I give really boring investment advice. I also think of myself as the tortoise and the hare, and I'm the turtle. Slow and steady. Save money. Save money. Don't try to beat the market. Don't try to beat everybody else, because odds are you're not going to. And quite frankly, I mean this in a slightly rude way. If you contact me and say, what do you think of Betterment, or what do you think of Robinhood? I'm going to say, you're not qualified to use it. And people are going to go, well, how can you possibly know I'm not qualified to use it? Because you're fucking asking me.
Yeah.
If you start calling me and asking me, should I short a fund, or should I use straddles or puts or calls or all these fancy things? That means you don't know anything about what they are, and you shouldn't do them. Just get an index fund and you're going to be fine.
There's a kind of game I've been playing off and on for probably the better part of 20 years. It's called the Hollywood Stock Exchange. Have you heard of this?
I have not. Go on.
Oh, you're interested. Okay.
So
yeah, you make an account and basically you bet on movies as stocks, and it's a game. You actually can't win any money. It's all just for fun.
Yeah. Well,
and so you start out with $2 million, and like movies until they are released, and then they go for like 2 weeks after they're released, then they delist.
Very nice. That does sound like fun. I know from time to time I get very fascinated with the numbers involved with movies and how much they spent and how much they're going to make.
Yeah.
That's some swinging for the fences investment, because you can put millions and millions into a movie and never get it back. Or you can be like Mel Gibson and make a piece of shit about Christian snuff porn and become so rich that you don't know what to do with it all.
Yeah. With this, you start out with $2 million Hollywood dollars.
Yeah.
And right now my portfolio is like 200 million, but I've been playing off and on for like 10 years. And like what you did, I went for the portfolios already done, the whatchamacallits, the funds.
Yeah.
Like, so like the under 30 Hollywood fund, the Lionsgate Studios fund, everything done by them, that kind of stuff. And I've always made more money with the funds than I have with any other individual movies.
Well, with the stock market, at least in theory, in the future, will continue to do something like it's done in the past. It'll make around 10% per year on average. When you're looking at long periods of time, like 10, 20 or plus years, there never is an average year. It's always way above or way below. But you can make money. And I have people tell me that they're scared of the stock market because it's like gambling, but then they go to a casino. And
yeah, exactly.
Casino is not like gambling. It is gambling.
It is gambling, absolutely.
And every hand you play, every time you spin the wheels in the slot machine, you're going to get back 90, 92, 95% of your money. When the stock market, on average, every time you play a year, you're going to get 110% of your money. And so 110% is great. The average mutual fund that is not an index fund underperforms that index by about 2 to 2.25%. Because of the cost structure and other complications. The average investor that picks stocks, buys and sells and trades during the year, they underperform the market by about 4 to 5%. And then when you pay taxes, if you're an active trader, you can end up making 1 to 3% in an average year where the market makes 10. And so then you'll get people that say, I tried the market, it didn't work. Well, there is do or not do. There is no try in the stock.
Yeah. And so, but if you put in $100 and you made back $1, if you made that back, that's profit. You took profit. It's not much, but it's some.
Right. Absolutely. And when I get people who are in their 20s or 30s, the biggest thing that you have to do is save more money. So when I tell people how to money, there's 3 steps. 1, save. And again, we covered that already. 2 is invest, which becomes more important once you have something saved to invest. And the third one, again, going with this boring philosophy, is time. It takes time. It does break my heart when I get someone that calls me when they're 58 and they say, we just helped pay for our 4th child to go through college. We're ready to save. We're ready to invest for retirement at 58. And then I have to ask them, what are your thoughts on the power of prayer? Because if you're starting at 58, unless you're saving like half or 60% of your money, it's going to be really hard to build a portfolio because you need time. One of my other favorite sayings is, have you ever met someone who's always trying to strike it rich?
Yes.
They're always trying. It generally doesn't work. So it's just a slow and steady. It's investing, it's saving money, and it takes time.
So what do you think about the new rules that Trump is starting to do about whether to take away the rules of fiduciary? That is to actually be working for your client and not try to screw them out of all the fees you can.
Well, I'm assuming you're talking about the Department of Labor's suggested rules for the expansion of the fiduciary title, which under Obama's administration was going to extend to everyone like me, every financial advisor, whether they work for Edward Jones or they sell life insurance, they sell annuities. Every one of those people was going to have to act as a fiduciary, which means they have to act in your best interest, not theirs. The industry fought that and fought that and fought that. And just when it looked like the industry was going to finally lose and consumers would get another layer of protection, Trump got elected and fucked everybody, which doesn't surprise me at all. And the rule got delayed and delayed again. And so now it's just not going to happen. So it's not like you've lost something you had. You lost something you were going to get. So when you go meet an average advisor, the one question you want to start with is, are you a fiduciary? If they say anything other than yes, they're probably not. And they'll give you convoluted answers like, well, it depends on the account sometimes, or that applies to trusts only, not to us. I've had clients or prospective clients, or I've even had conversations with advisors, some of them who've been in the business for more than a decade. They don't even know what a fiduciary is. So without the fiduciary standard, you could go meet an advisor and say you inherited $100,000, and they could sell you an annuity that might pay them a 15% commission, where they make $15,000 for selling you something that probably is crappy, because they don't have to worry about your interests. They are free to worry about their own, which is getting a big fat commission check. And so the industry is like that. It has been like that. And it looks like it's going to stay like that. But
so if they say something other than no, if they say something other than yes, that means that you should say, thank you very much, shake their hand, walk out.
That would be my reaction. It's one of those things like I gave a talk many years ago at a local service club, and I told them, I don't like annuities. I'm never going to say there's no annuity that's, I mean, there's always the possibility that there's a good annuity that's the right thing for the right person at the right time. It could happen. But odds are no, and never, ever, 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 under any circumstances, buy an annuity inside of a tax sheltered account like a 401k, IRA, or Roth IRA, because any theoretical advantage an annuity has is that you can avoid taxes for a while. Well, if you're in an IRA, you're already not paying taxes. And I made a statement like this at this group, and a guy came up afterwards and he says, you can't make a blanket statement like that. It's not true. And I said, oh, can you give me an example of where that would not be true? Because if you're right, I'll come back next week to this group on my own free time and apologize for being wrong. And he said, well, I can't think of one off the top of my head. And it turns out he sells annuities. And I said, well, think about it and get back to me. He goes, well, I can't give you client information. And I go, you don't have to give me client information. Give me a theoretical, any parameters you want to make. You come up with a situation, no matter how theoretical it is, that what I said was not true, I'll still come back and apologize. And he never contacted me again because what I said was true. They're terrible investments, but the advisor can go against your best interest and recommend something. It's like if you go to a Chevy dealership and you ask them what's better, a Chevy truck or a Ford truck.
Of course.
You know they're going to tell you Chevy. You know that, at least you should know that. And you know that the car salesman is there to make money for themselves and the dealership and their employer. When you go to a random large brokerage firm, I don't want to mention any names, Edward Jones, you show up and you sit down with them, there is kind of this veil, this mystere that they are now your advisor and they're going to do what's in your best interest. And maybe they do, but often they don't, and they don't have to, which is what blows my mind.
Yeah. So what do you say about the Trump assholes who say, "Oh, well, the stock market is doing so great, we're going to see more money," or the money that they make, the top 1% is going to trickle down, the old trickle down economics. What do you say about that stuff?
Yeah, well, we got so much in that one question. Great.
I'm sorry.
No,
Feel free to break that down any way you want.
Well, one of the
Or
things,
ignore it.
the stock market is very complicated, and the average person underperforms by trying to beat the market. So it's this weird, mysterious thing. And in the long run, I can very accurately and reliably and very confidently predict that the stock market is going to make about 10% per year over the next 20 years. When you ask me about next year, it could be minus 40 or plus 40. I have no way of knowing. And the people that predict what it's going to do, they're just making shit up. So I think one of my biggest successes is accepting and embracing the things that I don't know. I have no idea what the market is going to do next year. In reference to Trump and or Republican tax cuts, giving more money or requiring really rich people to pay less taxes, the idea that that's going to help the average person is so ludicrously, bizarrely insane. I can't wrap my head around why people believe it, other than they're one of the people that are going to benefit from it, i.e., they're already rich. But it's not going to help the economy. It's not going to help the average person. It might help the stock market, at least in the short run. And so one of the things that I kind of say things with a little bit of a hedge to it. So if companies pay less tax and therefore have more profit, some of them will give raises to their employees. Okay, sure. It'll happen. There will be cases, and you can see them you can look them up and you can find them. But most companies are just going to keep that money. And a lot of those companies that keep the money are going to buy back shares of their company stock. A company can buy back its own shares. It seems a bizarre thing to do, but they do it because they have money and they have no idea what to do with the money. And they don't want it to sit around, so they buy their shares. And that means there's fewer shares outstanding. And that means that each average share is worth more because there's fewer shares and the company is worth the same amount of money.
It's buyback.
It's called a buyback. And so that creates what I would call a positive pressure on the stock market. It doesn't mean that when companies get tax cuts, the market goes up. It means that of the 100 things that can affect the stock market in any time period, that one thing creates positive pressure for stock prices to go up. One of the biggest negative pressures that I can think of on the stock market is that if the vast majority of Americans can't really afford to buy anything, those companies at some point will make less money, and that creates a negative pressure. If you really wanted to make the stock market go crazy for a decade, maybe even a generation, that would be to have a dramatic redistribution of wealth from the rich to the poor. Because I once heard a billionaire say, as a billionaire, I can only buy so many pairs of jeans. But if you give that $1 billion to 100,000 people, each one of those people could buy a pair of jeans for their family. And therefore, the person who makes jeans sells more. The people who make washers and dryers, people who make cars, they all sell more stuff when everyone can afford to buy their things. If most people can't afford to buy anything, that stagnates the economy because really rich people sit on their money, they invest their money, but they're not buying things. So
yeah,
the economy.
When my company I worked for a Fortune 500 company. Literally, it's a Fortune 500 company. When they got their big tax break, instead of giving me a pay raise, they gave me $500. I would have much rather preferred $1, $2 an hour pay raise, than $500 cash.
$500 one time that, of course, you pay tax on.
Exactly.
So weird.
I'm just saying, I would have much rather preferred, a large increase in my pay, $1, $2. I would have been ecstatic.
Yes, something that locks in, it's regular and consistent. You can count on it. But $500 is nice, but I'm sure that's a fraction of the money that they didn't really get the money. They had to stop paying it in taxes. Sometimes this idea that American corporations pay 30, 40, 50% tax, Anyone who says that just is blind to the reality. And a lot of really, really large corporations pay very low taxes, and some of them negative
Pay
tax
none. Yeah.
because they get perks and benefits and access to land or nature preserves, all kind of things at incredibly discounted prices because of the theory that they're going to bring in jobs. And sometimes they do, and sometimes they bring in jobs, but people still can't live on those. So you get people that work for Walmart full time that still have to get food stamps or housing aid, and we shouldn't have that in this country. The money.
Like, I'm retired from the military, so I get a pension from the military and I get disability. That's non-tax because it's a disability from the VA. But if it wasn't for my job that I'm working now, I wouldn't be able to have the stuff that I do. So
Yeah.
I'm effectively working 2 jobs. Well, I did. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I'm with you, and it's funny. Up until about 5 years ago, I've always worked 2 jobs or more. This is the first time in my life that I have one consistent job. I mean, I've been doing this for 23 years, but a lot of it was nights and weekends because I didn't make enough to do it by itself. I had a day job. I worked for the man, and I've had very fortunate jobs working for the man, doing fun and interesting things where they paid me a lot of money because not everybody could do it. And so that's one of the things I can tell a younger person is you have to find a job skill that not everybody else has. If your job skill is washing dishes in a restaurant or working in the mall, almost anybody can do that. So your pay is going to be close to minimum wage. But if you can get a certificate as a nurse or even hire a doctor, or you pass some certification for computer code, now many less, not as many people can do it. And so the odds are you're going to get paid quite a bit more to do something like that.
Well, I have a degree in stationary engineering. I have an AAS. And so, like, the only place in the country that has a BS is one college in Ohio.
Yeah.
They're the only ones in the country that gives you a BS in stationary engineering. But I graduated Phi Theta Kappa, and I've like got 6 or 7 certificates on top of my degree.
Right.
And I think that because wages are suppressed unnaturally, where I should be making $40 or $50 an hour, I'm not for this. And plus the 20 years that I did in the Navy as a diesel mechanic and all the experience that I did with that, and I don't make anywhere near that kind of money.
Yeah, it can happen. And again, the economy, there's only so many jobs that pay really well. Unemployment rate is really low, but a lot of people are working below their skill level, just like you're describing, where they're getting by, but it's not great. And I do have quite a few clients that are in a situation like you where they're retired military, and half pay and TRICARE for the rest of your life is a pretty good gig. I just never could do it because I didn't have enough courage to stand in front of bullets. So
it's a rough life.
Yeah, and I have a great amount of respect for people that could do something that I was probably too much of a coward to ever consider. So,
and there's the expression that we signed a blank check to the government up to and including our life for service.
Yeah.
The government only cashed mine for 60%.
Yeah, your life for 60%. All right, fair enough.
For 60% disability.
Yeah.
They cashed it for 60%.
And
I'm 47 years old, almost 48, and I'm a wreck.
It does very, very seriously concern me when someone in the government will say we don't have the money to support our vets, because if there's any one thing that the government must do, is take care of people who were willing to sacrifice their lives and actually happen to live. Those people should not be homeless. Those people should never be hungry, and those people should always have medical care. That's just something that I'm convinced is the way it should be. But I don't control the world.
Do you know what the VA started doing in the last year? This might come as a surprise to you or not.
Not helping?
That they've been doing that for a long time. Lots of things there where they just chose not to help me or other people that I know. But anyways, because I've got insurance through my company, they're charging my company, my insurance company, for items tendered and I'm supposed to be, because I'm over 50% disabled, so the VA should just be taking care of it. They're billing my insurance company.
Yeah,
and this is apparently standard practice now.
It's a weird thing if you ever have two insurances. If you're married to somebody and you both have insurance, it makes it much more complicated than having one insurance. And I even worked for an employer a long time ago that said that if you have a spouse that has insurance available, you must also get that or you will be dropped from the employee plan. And so there you get a situation where you're paying for two full-priced insurances, and those insurance companies split the costs. So you might end up paying a little less in day to day, but you're paying more every month. So that's another thing. I think every American should have healthcare. We should have universal healthcare. We should have Medicare for all, whatever you want to call it. And we can argue about the specifics of how it works or how much you get, or if there's a limit. So maybe, you can still buy insurance, in case the bills get over $100,000 or something to protect you. But you should be able to show up and see the doctor. We shouldn't have cases where someone gets hurt and the people around them are like, man, you need an ambulance. And they say, no, don't call an ambulance. I can't pay the bill.
Yeah. What do you think about a basic life stipend?
I'm conflicted on that. I think there could be something that's very, very low, and maybe what I think is very low, a lot of people would be really happy with. I don't know if it's 5,000 or 10,000 where you could find a way to survive without being in a box. But maybe it would require some sort of labor, some sort of effort that you put out, assuming that you can. But I do know on a recent trip I took out to the West Coast, I was very saddened by little communities of tents and homeless people. And I can't imagine all those people chose to be homeless. Like sometimes people will say, oh, they chose to be homeless. Anyone who doesn't want to be homeless. And we can talk about that, right?
Yeah.
Because I've never experienced it. I've been close many years ago, and I can't really see how that's something I would choose to do. But, everyone has different goals in life.
Reagan closed down all the mental hospitals in the 80s and that kind of stuff. So a lot of people who were mentally ill just got kicked out on the street. And so that's one of the reasons why there's so many mentally ill homeless, is because, they can't be cared for because there's no way to care for them. We have shit for social services in the US, and it fucking saddens me.
And it's been like a 50 or 60 year kind of slow battle against services, and even against things like, civil rights. A lot of places, when they were told they had to allow African Americans, Black Americans into their public schools, a lot of people then started private schools.
Yes.
Schools don't have to follow the same rules. I actually sent my kids for a few years to a Christian school because the town we lived in, we believed that the private school was better than the public school. The average test scores in the private school were higher, but I later learned it had more to do with selection bias than the quality of the education provided, because in the public school, everyone goes.
Yeah.
The school creates at least a minimal filter because the parents have to care enough to seek out the private school. The parents have to either then pay a supplemental amount or apply for a scholarship. So there's extra work, and that changes the character of the average parent. They're parents that care about education and their kids' education, and that gets handed down to the children. And so even if the school is not in any way any better, the education that they achieve is better because they're families that are more interested into it or are more likely to have wealth. So by default, you should have better results, but it's not because the teaching's better. It's just selection bias. The people going into the private school are better, at least better prepared or more desirous of an education, not better as human beings.
I'm in the Chicago area, and it's like, since we fund our schools in the United States by most of the time with housing, the taxes on housing, like you get the north suburbs that are notoriously well-to-do, either that or some of the far west suburbs are notoriously well-to-do here in Chicago. And so the schools are notoriously better. You know what I'm saying? So it's like you got some of the schools like New Trier High School, which is one of the best high schools, not in Illinois, but in the United States. That's because like the average house there is like the minimum is like $600,000. You know, these are like people like your high end doctors and sports players and that kind of stuff. They're the ones who buy houses and condos and stuff in that area. So their kids are, of course, going to be better educated because that's where they're living because the taxes are higher. So you got kids who go to school, you know, like where the projects used to be in the near south side and near west side in Chicago. You know, the taxes it's Chicago taxes, but it's a lot less than in the suburbs. So it's conglomerated from the whole city, so it doesn't work out as good. Does that make any sense?
Oh yeah.
So Chicago high schools, you've got to bust your ass to get into a good college, but the people going to Near Trier High School or some of the other schools that are really well to do, they're going to much better schools, Ivy League schools, and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, we have a small town near Joliet where I live in the city of New Lenox, but there's another small town that it has its own little school district from K through 8, one building. That's the entire school district. So it's incredibly small, and it never joined, a bigger school district. But the area that it's in, all the housing prices are incredibly low. So people that have no money or very little money move in. And so no one with money wants to be in that area because everyone there is poor. And so you don't want to be a rich person living near poor people. And his school doesn't have any money. And they're going to replace the roof, redo the roof of the building. And they're going to do 25% per year because they can't afford to replace the entire roof in one go. They're going to try to string it out over 4 years and just
wow.
Weeks. And they use 10 and 12 and 15-year-old textbooks. They don't have computers, or they have a lab that has a few computers that maybe you can share. And a couple miles down the road, there's another school district that is kind of the same situation. However, in that area, it has become a ginormous warehousing area because near me is the third largest port, the single largest land port in the United States of America. Because in the middle of the United States, all the cargo comes into the central location, and then all the cargo goes out to different places. So the amount of warehousing, like Amazon warehouses and IKEA and Barnes & Noble, Target, Walmart, they all have distribution centers in this area. And there's a lot of industry and a lot of trucks. And it turned out where the school was located was really close to this giant rail yard land port. And they sold the school, or got a contract to sell the school for so much money that a mile away, they built a brand new cutting edge school, and it has every feature and every technology, and it's going to be the cutting edge. And so this school is just rolling in dough and trying to figure out how to spend it. And a few miles away is a school that's scrapping by. And so when you're a parent, if you know this, if you pay attention to this, and it matters to you, you want to live in one district versus the other. And it's just sometimes a couple of blocks away. And of course, that makes the housing prices go up because of the demand, and then generating more revenue on property taxes. It's completely fucked up. It's unfair. And I don't know how you fix it, but it's wrong. As a society, we should be bothered by that, but we aren't really.
So I want to go back to the homeless points we were talking about, because I do work with the homeless population, specifically homeless youth.
Yes.
And I will say that when people start saying that they choose to be homeless, it's because they couldn't get out of that situation. So they want to actively say they chose that, and they don't want to go back because they don't know how. And in the youth population specifically, you run into things like substance abuse. I mean, adults too, but substance abuse turns into a big thing because once you become homeless, you're sad and you're lonely and you're hungry and you're cold. And something that can help you with those things is alcohol or drugs. And then that just turns into a vicious cycle, and keeps you in that cycle until you decide you want to come out of it. And then you also have the mental health aspect. Almost, I would say like half to 3/4 of the youth I've encountered have some kind of mental health issue, whether that be depression, anxiety, all the way up to like more severe things. And then a lot of the youth are LGBT. I would say like at least 10 to 20% of the youth are LGBT. And that just comes down to the fact that their parents kicked them out.
Is that a higher percentage than the national average?
The national average is 10 to 20% of homeless youth.
No, but I'm saying, but is that higher than the regular national average? I mean, is the homeless youth LGBT higher than the normal national average for LGBT?
I'm sure it is. I don't know the percentage of LGBT Americans.
Sorry.
Right now. Sorry.
That's okay.
But I'm pretty sure it is quite higher. And so you have these kids and they're like ages like 16, 17, 18, all the way up to like 26 or so. And they have no family supports. Maybe they didn't even get their GED or their high school diploma because they got kicked out of, and often they're kicked out of school and they have to go to an alternative school and then they just don't want to go. So they drop out and it's really hard to focus on school, when you don't have a place to live. It's like this awful system. And I am fortunate to work for a nonprofit that helps these kids. But I mean, we can only do so much and it sucks. And these kids, they're working like 1 or 2 jobs all the time. Like I see the kids that are working and they just can't get ahead because no one's going to rent to them. No one's going to, if you don't, and I just went through this because I just moved here and I didn't have an address and I was staying in an Airbnb for a month and like, you can't get a bank account if you don't have an address. You can't do so many things. And it's just, the system tries to keep these kids down and it sucks. So I guess I just have a question of like these kids, they're going to be working like 2 jobs. They're going to be going to school. They're trying their best to get out. And like, that's what I went through. Until this job, I was working 2 jobs or 3 jobs or 4 jobs. And so and this job doesn't pay that much. So I guess my question is like, how much money should youth aim to save before they start investing? And I know they are going to be focusing on housing and food and just taking care of their basic necessities for a long time, but a lot of them are interested in getting ahead. So I guess that's my question.
Yeah, sure. I think from a basic standpoint, you should have several months of cash on hand or nearby in your local bank. There's a lot of disagreement how much that should be, but 3 months would be really nice. 6 months is even nicer. It also depends on how close you're living to your budget. My son, at some point, his employer was causing him problems, so he quit his job, but he had been living on 1/2 of what he was making. So he actually, over a year, had saved up an entire second year of income that he could live on while looking for another job. Not everyone can do that, no doubt about it. But saving something would be nice. The other thing is that once you get even just a few months on hand, you can start investing for the long term, knowing that the stock market's going to go up in general, but you're concerned that the stock market might go down in specific when you need it. The worst time periods like 7 and 8 and even around the 2000s with the dot-com bubble, stocks went down by half. But if you've saved $5,000 and it goes down by half, you would still at least have $2,500 as emergency money, and hopefully you don't need it. And of course, some of it you could put in bonds or CD, certificates of deposit, at banks are getting better as interest rates go up. So you might be able to make 2 or 3% there. So there's different ways to do it. But yeah, you want to have that couple of months on cash on hand because you don't want losing your job to end up being you turning into homeless in a month. And that's what it creates, what I call a cascade event, where one thing happens and then another thing happens and another thing happens, and it becomes this unstoppable cascade of events, and then you end up on the street because then how do you get your food? Where do you stay? How do you even shave and get a shower so that you can go apply for a job? You don't want to get to that point. And our society teaches us or tries to get us to buy more stuff. And one of the things that does drive me crazy when someone gets a job and they start making money for the first time in their life, whether they're 16 or 32, and they're making good money, sometimes I'll hear them say something like, I want to buy this 70-inch TV. I deserve it. I really dislike the word deserve. I think, I mean, you deserve a healthy life. Maybe you deserve healthcare, but you don't deserve a 70-inch TV. It's something you want. And that's fine. You can choose to buy it, but a lot more effort should be put into saving money for those who can. But for those who can't, we should have a better system to help people. A building that has incredibly small rooms, or maybe even you share a bathroom with 10 rooms, and you've got a place that you can go by yourself and close the door and sleep and store some things, and you can clean up, and you can have an address, and you can have a phone, even if it's just what they used to call a landline, so you can go apply for jobs. How much money would that cost us as a society to have a place where you can sign up and go, I have nowhere else to go, and you can get this small room where you're safe at night, and you are protected, and you're not cold. I don't know why that's so hard to do, but
yeah, that actually brings up another point. So the homeless population, so you can be homeless and you can be like couch surfing with friends, or just like staying like with 8 people in one house, and that still can qualify you as being homeless because like you don't have your own place. But also the homeless population on the street, they actually cost us so much money because they are going to the emergency room. They are getting taken to jail for being publicly intoxicated. They are going to substance abuse clinics. They are just using ambulance rides. They are using so many resources and not having anything to pay for them. So actually, like the services like my nonprofit does and other nonprofits to help get homeless people off the street, saves us a lot more money than we're paying like into our nonprofits. So,
and it kind of goes back to maybe we do have some basic incomes where, you're at least guaranteed a room with a twin bed, and, a couple $100 a week so that you're not going hungry. But I don't know. It's
tiny houses.
Yeah, tiny houses. The big problem with tiny houses, of course, is you have to sit the tiny house somewhere, and you're on somebody's land. That's why I like the idea of a building. But
I'm just saying, though. I mean, it's like they've got, turn trailer parks, turn a trailer park into a tiny house lot. You could actually fit more houses onto a trailer house lot. Yeah. I'm just saying that it's an idea.
Yeah, there's all kinds of ways to do it, but anywho.
So Phil, Eric, do you want to ask? Is there something else that you want to ask? I think we need to move on.
I just one other little point with the building idea is just that when you get, unless you add some sort of supports for the people, I think it's just going to be setting them up for failure anyway. And like it is good to get them out of the cold and stuff, but if you're expecting them to all be in a building and congregate, then you're going to have more substance abuse problems. You're going to have drug problems. You're going to have so many problems if you don't add people there to support them. So I think that's definitely like adding mental health care and substance abuse care is really important to that. So
I agree. Let's do it.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's go.
Come on. Done.
Talk to all your millionaire friends and have them invest in a company.
What I want to know, Phil, is how many billionaires are there in the United States, do you think?
I don't know, but I would guess it is not more than a couple of hundreds, maybe 1,000.
Where the fuck is Batman?
Yeah, one of them.
I'm just saying. I mean, that's just a random point because, you work with money, and I've always wanted to say that to somebody who deals with money. Why don't you ask one of your billionaire clients, why the fuck aren't you Batman? Well, you got the money for it.
If I had billionaire clients, I probably wouldn't be on your show.
That's a good point. Fuck you.
Just having a little fun. I'm sorry.
Oh, no, I thought it was great. So Phil, we asked this a lot of our guests, and so I want to know, because Eric and I are gigantic fucking nerds, and I've been playing Dungeons & Dragons since about 1984, something like that. Have you ever played Dungeons & Dragons, and if so, what's your favorite kind of character?
Oh God, favorite kind of character. I didn't know that was coming.
Hey, that was a left field question for you.
I graduated high school in '85, so I'm a little older than you, I think. But I played Dungeons and Dragons mostly in like junior high, maybe freshman year of high school, and our friends, we got around and we played. And I don't think we did it right, but we had fun.
Yeah, that's the most important thing. It's what one of the very first things they say in the book is it's a game, have fun.
Yeah, because when we did magic spells, for example, cast your spell because you had that ability. You didn't have to have all the ingredients. You didn't have to have a pewter little character that you moved on.
We didn't play with ingredients, and I still don't.
Favorite character, though, I guess I did have a warm spot for clerics. I was fascinated by the magic of it. The fighter characters. I mean, that's pretty straightforward, and
yeah.
So that, but the people who did the magic always kind of fascinated me.
Yeah, I've always been, I've said before, I've always been more partial to paladins myself. So it's kind of a mix of the fightery and then the cleric-y. So
I know we for a while there, we made up our own monsters. So, we create the characteristics. This is before Pokemon came and you could collect and battle your own monsters that someone else made for you. With Dungeons and Dragons, we often made our own.
Yeah, I did that a lot, actually. I saw, from watching the Dungeons & Dragons cartoon back in the day. Do you remember the cartoon?
Never saw a cartoon for it, no.
What? Yeah, you can get them online. I actually own the box set. I bought the box set a couple of years ago.
Nice.
Yeah. But yeah, so I would see some of the things, and if they weren't some of the small creatures and other stuff that I would see in other cartoons and stuff that I would watch, I would make up stats for them depending on how tough they were. And so, yeah, I did that all the time.
I know we had a monster, and I don't know if we made it or if it was something that someone else created, but I remember fondly of a monster that was made of stone, but somehow could magically move through cave walls. And so it would blend into the wall, but then be able to come out of the wall and be stone itself. Not a chunk out of the wall, but would pass through the wall and maintain integrity.
There's a couple of them like that, actually.
That was good fun.
Yeah, especially if they sneak out and get a surprise round on you. Tag, bitch, pow.
My son was playing one of the team online combat games, and I'm so sorry, I don't even know what it's called, but maybe someone will pick it up, where you can see what the other team is doing to a point, and the other team used a spell to search a forest or a jungle or undergrowth or something to see if another team was hiding in there to attack them. And so since that area was being searched, my son and his team knew that area was safe to go to because they just searched it there. Well, it turns out that's where the enemy was hiding. They had searched their own area, knowing that you would see that they searched and interpret from that there was nobody there, and they wanted to know if you were there. And so they walked right into an ambush. And I was like, "Ooh, I love that, the thought process that goes into that."
Yeah. Yeah. There's a lot of, I post pictures sometimes, and I think Eric does too, of his games. We'll post them on the Facebook page. It's my character that I'm currently playing is some elf with a two-ended scimitar. And anyways, so it's I felled a giant in one round. I 3 critical stroked him in four attacks. Hi. So I smoked his ass. Yeah, Eric is just so excited.
Critical stroking.
Critical stroking. Yep. It's always got to.
I'm real lame with games now. I think the only thing I play is Civilization, and it's nice because I'm in my office all day and I have it on another screen and another computer on the edge of the desk. And every once in a while, I take a little 10, 15-minute break. I can't even imagine sitting down for hours and learning how to play. I think the last time I was really into a game was Mario Kart Double Dash. But
Well, Civilization is
I
fun.
mastered that. Yeah.
All right. So speaking of games, you want to do this game, Matthew?
I do.
Talk to me.
So I picked up this game. It's called No Trumps. I don't know if you can see it. It's probably backwards in the thing. So
That was good.
okay. But anyway, so the whole thing is like you've got to try to guess who made the quote. Was it Donald Trump or somebody? It's usually like some kind of fucking fascist. It's kind of awesome and scary all at the same time. Phil, do you mind if we start with you?
Let's go for it.
Tokyo cab drivers are all ex-kamikaze pilots. I wouldn't mind a little bow in Japan. They bow. I love it. The only thing I love about Japan.
Oh, that's Trump.
Which one?
Oh God,
Oh, I
Donald.
didn't understand.
The first one or the second one, Phil?
Oh, the old one.
The first one?
Yeah, the orange one. Donald Trump Sr.
Oh, no. But which one? The first one or the second one was Donald Trump?
Oh, those were two quotes.
Two quotes. Which one was which?
I'll
Tokyo.
go. I'll go with the second one then.
You are correct. The second one was Donald Trump. The first one was Bob Hope.
Yeah, because when you first started reading, I'm like, that doesn't sound like Trump, and I thought you were reading one thing, and I'm like, the end of that,
No,
definitely Trump.
Okay.
Yeah, you didn't explain the rules very well.
Okay, so I'm an asshole. Okay, so
And one is likely Trump.
yeah, one is going to be Trump.
Okay.
Okay.
Now I get it.
Okay. Do you mind if I sit back a little because your breath is very bad? I wish on him nothing but pain in his silly travels, especially if they wind up in my octagon.
Oh, it has to be the first one. He wouldn't know Octagon.
Yeah, the first one.
Yeah, the first one was Trump. The second one was Charlie Sheen.
All right.
Ooh, schwanky.
Schwanky. Okay. I'm tired of people not treating me like the gift that I am. I think I'm actually humble. I think I'm much more humble than you would understand.
Number two.
God, that's tough. Yeah, I'm gonna have to go with the humble thing. Humble brag.
That was Donald Trump. The second one was Donald Trump.
But I can
The
see.
first
Go ahead.
The first one was Paula Abdul.
Wow. I know Trump had recently said for Thanksgiving, maybe before this or after this game was published, when asked what he was thankful for, he was thankful for his skills to help make America great again.
Yeah. Yeah. And on Thanksgiving, when he called an admiral who was deployed, he somehow said that electricity was bad and steamships were better than the nuclear aircraft carrier.
Yeah, it's the weird.
I wish I was joking.
Yeah. No, I'm familiar with what you're talking about. Almost anything and everything he says, it's so bad. The Republicans at this point, not to get too political, are complicit at best, if not.
Absolutely. One more?
You bet.
Yeah.
When someone crosses you, my advice is get even. That's not typical advice, but it is real advice. And if you do not do it, then you are just a schmuck. A word to the wise isn't necessary. It's the stupid ones who need advice.
Oh, the first one for sure. That's why I love
Yeah.
Republicans, I think.
Yep, Trump.
Yep.
The first one was Trump. The second one was Bill Cosby.
Oh gosh.
Yeah.
Nice list of people you have given quotes there.
Isn't that great? Yeah, it's like things I would trust more than spending time with Donald Trump. I would take a drink from Bill Cosby or go hunting with Dick Cheney.
Oh, God. All right. Well, Phil, where can we find you?
The show, of course, is The Phil Ferguson Show, and all good podcasters have the show. Google The Phil Ferguson Show, and you'll find them all. I'm on Twitter at Skeptic Money. My company, Polaris Financial Planning, does have a website, but it's just there for those people that insist that I have a website. You have a website? And I go, yes, I do. And they go look and they go, yes, you do. You have a website. Every once in a while, someone will complain that there's not much there, but I don't think many millionaires go and look at a website for 30 seconds and go, I'm going to hire this guy. So I don't spend a lot of time on it, or no time, I guess, at all. But those are places you can find me. Of course, I'm on Facebook, and the Phil Ferguson Show has a Facebook page. But the big thing is the podcast. Listen to the podcast, learn about how to invest, learn how to protect yourself. And if you know absolutely nothing, my go-to book that I recommend is called The Rich Man in Babylon.
The Rich Man's Babylon?
The Richest Man in Babylon.
The Richest Man in Babylon. Okay.
I warn people it's about 100-year-old book, so it does have some stereotypes that you might not find comforting. But
okay,
messages on how to invest and how to save and at least how to get started is very nice. And it doesn't have a lot of math. It doesn't have a lot of complex topics. And it's stories, so anyone can read it. And if you don't have the $5 for the book, someone has conveniently put it up on YouTube and read the entire book aloud for you for free.
Wow.
Nice.
So if you don't have a whole lot of money, at least you can learn something about really basic. It's the entry-level book that I recommend to everybody, and it'll get you started.
Awesome.
Well, Phil, thank you very much for coming on and talking to us for a little while about financial matters and some politics and just generally hanging out and bullshitting.
I appreciate it. I may have to check out that game. That sounds like a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay, so this is Matthew, and for Eric, this is the Odd Atheist Friends. And Eric, what number is this? I don't even think I said it.
45.
Number 45. So we're gonna call this fucking Traderville? Who knows? Anyways, we'll see you again next time.
Bye.